right, you guys. We are here live. This is the first live episode of Move the Needle. I am your host or co host, Lee Grigsby. You see, we have a guest. We will get to her in a second. My co host, pinch hitter, jumping right in, Dakota.
How we doing, everybody? Great to be back here.
Absolutely. Dakota, thank you for jumping in.
Oh, my pleasure. Always.
Before we introduce our guest, I just want to mention that my usual co-host, J.R. Ford, he is not able to be with us right now. He is currently recovering from COVID. So we definitely wish him the best recovery, full recovery.
Yes.
I have been in touch with him. He's got mediocre symptoms, but doing well. So again, Dakota, thank you so much.
Oh, no problem. It's my pleasure. Like I said, thank you for feeling confident enough to invite me back, and especially
Absolutely.
with such a wonderful, esteemed guest as we're about to introduce. And I just want to take a quick moment just to say thoughts and prayers, of course, are with JR and his family. So hopefully a nice speedy recovery for him.
Appreciate it. And if he's well enough to be watching or listening, hopefully he heard it. If not, I will definitely let him know for sure.
Definitely.
Yeah, wishing you the best, JR.
Absolutely. Well, without further ado, we are here live with Gabby Abdelgadir. She's a friend of mine. We have been connected for probably 2 days. No, I'm kidding, not 2 days, but quite a few weeks. We met each other through, I would call it a mastermind / networking group. But the importance of her being a guest on Move the Needle, you guys, fierce advocate for equality, equity, all her life. And she is an author, best-selling author, by the way. So Gabby, before we get to the book that we're going to talk about, please give another introduction of yourself and kind of tell us where you are and what you've been doing. What do you do?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for the intro, Lee, and nice to meet you, Dakota. And
likewise.
I live in Toronto, Canada. My name is Gabby Abdelgadir. I am known on Facebook as the Declutter Queen because that's what I teach, and I teach Chinese Feng Shui. And I was hacked, so I was forced to change my name. And the Gabby Declutter Queen actually was chosen for me by my mastermind group. And I started a new group. I lost so much with the hack. So that is me. I have worked in 3 different countries. I have worked in Sudan for Union Carbide, United Nations. And then I went to the Middle East when the country started to change. And my mom is like, I smell something bad happening. I want you out. So I went to the Middle East, worked for an oil company for about 7.5 years. And then moved here to Canada in 1997 solo. Didn't know anybody in this country. It was a goal I set, January 2nd, new country, new home, new place, new people, new job, new friends, everything.
Wow.
So, So
amazing.
I know it takes a lot of guts for a female to do that, but here I am now. And I have been here since, and I have been working as a legal executive assistant and as an executive assistant. And then I have been an avid reader, an avid learner of personal growth, personal development, and leadership. It's been for over 20 years now. I stopped reading fiction. I only read personal growth books and leadership books.
Wow.
And I have written my first book back in 2013, which is my story, called The Grace, Peace, and Balance, and Surviving and Thriving Against All Odds. I am a Civil War survivor. I was 14 when I saw what Civil War was like. I didn't even know what a bullet sounded except in the movies at the time. But then we've been through a lot. I have seen everything in life, the good, the bad, the ugly. But one of the things that always got to me is in the job, it started in the job, is the discrimination that some people got. Fighting for people, I almost got fired so many times because some people are afraid to lose their job. They don't speak up, but I go and speak up on their behalf. And, I get fired. I'll find out that's my attitude. What if they fire me? I'll get another job, but they can't in front of me treat this person like that. So I've always been like that. And then now that I have my own son growing up, he has seen a lot. And I see a lot of his friends, a lot of the community, my colleagues and the children, some of their children, the stuff they go through. It is time that we all work together to make change. Even if we change one family, one person at a time, we're still doing a great job. So that is what I am. I'm a Jack Canfield Success Principles Certified Trainer. I am also a certified the Lynn Method Clutter Clearing Coach, which is a spiritual way of doing it. And I'm a feng shui practitioner, motivational speaker, and that's all about me, I guess.
Well, yes, this episode is all about you too.
Yeah,
that's perfect.
Thank you.
And that was great. Yeah,
that's perfect. Gabby, again, before we get into the book, so when you moved to Canada, when you made the decision, was it with your son also?
No, I met my husband here in Canada. Actually, after 1 year, I came solo. Didn't know anybody, had no intention of getting married. I said to myself, I will work, save a tiny bit. Travel always has been my passion. So I had said to myself, I'm going to save a tiny bit for retirement and I'm continue traveling because I used to travel. I have been in 23 countries and cities I can't even count. So my dream was to make them 100, which is not possible now with all this pandemic stuff and all that. If I can make them to 50 before I die, that's it. I met my husband here after 1 year at friends. Okay. Yeah, when I came, I did meet a few people that I happened to know from my childhood. So I met my husband in one of their homes.
Gotcha.
Oh, okay.
Gotcha. So I do have another question. Has your son read your books, and what does he think about your best-selling, being a best-selling author?
The first book that I wrote, that was a bestseller, my story, he couldn't finish it because there was a lot of stuff about his dad. My husband passed away from cancer.
Yes.
And my son was 8, so he still misses his dad so much. He always said, I needed my dad now more than when I was 8. So when he reached a certain point in that book, when I was talking about the struggles, my husband and the chemotherapy and me and all that, he started crying and he put the book down. He couldn't finish it. He has not read. He just read like the first 3 pages and the back of the book. And I'm so proud of you, Mom. That's it. But a couple of his friends have read it and they came and like, oh my God, Gabby.
They're like, I've known you for how long? And you wrote.
I know. I know.
Yeah, I can imagine that. As someone who's lost both his parents, I can definitely imagine the challenge and the struggle that he was coming across,
Yeah.
But I'm glad that at least that he should be proud of you, because while I haven't read the first book yet, and I'm not through the book. Wait, you have a copy of your second book? Because we're gonna jump into that now. Can you hold it up?
Oh yeah. So
I haven't finished this one, the book on discrimination.
Yeah,
that's perfect. This is the book that we're going to talk about. I haven't finished that.
Yeah, by popular demand, it has been translated to Spanish as well. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
So if that's not proof of a best-selling author, right?
Right. That is great.
It's in more than one language. More than one language.
Yeah. That is great.
Thank you. Yeah.
So I'm glad. Go ahead.
Sorry. Go ahead. No, I was gonna say, if you don't mind me asking a question real quick, Gabby, absolutely. I was curious on the subject of your son and of being an author. Was this something, some of the stories from within your first book, or maybe even like some of your personal stories from this book, your second book, was your son aware of those stories ahead of time? Had he heard those stories from you, possibly like growing up, or were those things where his introduction to those stories of your life are from the book itself?
It was introduction, because he was when my husband got cancer, my son was 6. When he passed away, it was right after his 8th birthday. So there is stuff that we went through. We couldn't tell him. The kid was like 8 years old, and we couldn't tell him a lot. We didn't even tell him he had cancer up until the hospital decided we have to tell him, and a psychologist or psychiatrist, whatever, told him. And you can read that story. If that story didn't make you cry, I don't know what else will. Especially like if you're married, your wives are definitely gonna will cry. So he had
Dakota,
no idea.
don't read it yet. Don't read it yet, Dakota.
Yeah, don't read it yet. Yeah. So he had no idea about certain challenges, like when my husband, for example, the one that made him cry was when my husband one night, I think it was about a month before he passed away, he said to me, Gabby, can you ask my doctor if they could let me go sleep at home for one night? And then I spoke to his doctor. She said, sure. She gave me a bunch of medicine. My brother-in-law and I took him home. And then I put him in bed, and then I went in to make soup and things like that. In the meantime, a couple of people went to the hospital, couldn't find him. They came, I opened the door, told them to sit down. I went back in 10 minutes to check on him. Blood was coming out of here. The blood was flowing from his mouth to the pillow, to the bed, to the carpet. And I screamed. The guys came in. I called my brother-in-law. I called the hospital, bring him right back. He's losing blood. So so that story, he had zero idea, because I brought him from school that day. We took him back to the hospital. My husband, I had to go back, pick him from daycare, and then go home. I had the door locked. When my son went to bed, that's when I got busy scrubbing all the blood so that he doesn't see it. So he read that in the book. Oh my God, he just went crazy, like he.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
I had my dad, I told, like, just when I told how much he'd suffered, I had no idea things were this bad. He cried, and he didn't finish the book, which is understandable.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
sure. And just to go on what you went through with your husband, you and I have talked about that a few times before, and I just want to acknowledge the strength that you have. I didn't need to know that story, or didn't need to even hear that, because that energy already comes from you. But I just want to acknowledge that, because even putting that in a book for other people to read, and sharing your story is amazing, and the ultimate like courageous act, I think. So thank you thank you for sharing that with our listeners and viewers today as well, because that speaks to the amount of strength that you use in your advocacy, again, for equality and equity, right? Hands down. So getting into the book, actually, the book on discrimination, I want you to talk about this, and I'm going to set it up for you. The very first story that you talk about is when you were with your colleagues, your all-white colleagues, and the waitress, the way she treated you. Like, you start, guys, how you watch a movie, right? And let's say that you ignored all the reviews, and you didn't know what it was quite about, but it has some action, it has a thriller, all that kind of stuff. And the very first scene they hit you with, and you're like, wait, what's the rest of the movie like? That was the beginning of your book. When I'm reading this, I'm like, wow, she didn't hold any punches. She went right there with what has happened. So can you talk about that very first story, and share that with our listeners and viewers about what you went through with the waitress?
Yeah, so that was only one story that I shared, but it has happened to me many, many times. And because with my bosses, like at least once a month, they used to take us for lunch, just a few of us, and we go to these high-end restaurants, and there are a lot of Caucasian servers, and there are also like qualified Black servers. But that was the one, because also maybe she was one of my own background, the lady, and so we sat there, we were she came in, she was absolutely gorgeous. She had a smile from here to here. when she was serving all my bosses. I was the only Black lady on the table, mind you. And when it came to me, oh my goodness, guys, you should have seen her face. There was anger in there. There was frustration in there. There was jealousy in there. I couldn't figure it out, but I could see this hate, this anger that she actually had to serve me. And then I just looked at her and I gave her my this, and then she just picked up the, the menu like this, and she left. And then my boss looked at me. She goes to me, "You okay, Gabby?" I said, "Yeah, I'm fine. You know that I'm going to deal with this later." "Oh, I know you," he goes. He's Italian. God bless him. Yeah. Yeah. He goes to me, "Do you want to go talk to her right now?" I said, no, that's not your issue. It's my issue. So I'm going to have to deal with it.
Sure.
We had food, everything else. Did the same when it came to dessert and all that. And I just had fun. This is an executive lunch, right? We had fun. We had lunch, but I was fuming, guys, the whole time. We only had
you
like
can feel your blood pressure just rising during the whole lunch.
Seriously. And then it was only 2 hours before the end of the day. So I couldn't wait for those 2 hours to be over. I went straight to the restaurant. I said, "I want to speak to the manager." Then the other ladies, "Can we help you?" I said, "No, I just want to speak to the manager." And then I called the manager, came in, and I said, "There was a waitress here today. She is this, and I want you to call her right here, right now." So he said, "Which one?" He called another no. And then when she came in, she was shocked to see me and to see her manager. And I told him, "This lady right here needs to learn some etiquette, some respect. And she needs to be able to respect everybody who comes to your restaurant." He said, "What happened?" I told him exactly. She started to deny it. I told her, "Shut up right now." Even my bosses wanted to call your manager, and I told them no, because I wanted to deal with it myself. And I don't know what happened after that. I told her, "You need to," the manager, I told him, "I'm sorry, but you need to train your staff not to discriminate against people. Everybody should be treated equally." And then I left. It happened to me years later when I became spiritual, like in my younger days, you wouldn't want to mess up with me, but when
Gabby,
you become
I'm not sure I want to mess up with you now.
No, seriously, no. When you become a spiritual person, you deal with things differently. So later on, I think a couple of years ago, it happened to me again. And then she was also another gorgeous lady. And then I said to her, I told her, "You know what? You should smile because you have such a beautiful smile." Her energy completely changed from that hatred look that she had to serve me, being the only Black person on the table. She actually felt happy when I told her, "You're gorgeous. You have a beautiful smile. You should use it all the time." So this is the Gabby before and the Gabby now, right now. So yeah.
Both Gabby's very effective, though, I would like to say.
I know. But doesn't it make you angry, though? Like when you are
absolutely.
with people, everybody is being treated with respect.
Except you.
Except you.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah. So that is my story. Okay.
Gabby, I want to actually touch on that. You bring up a good point. The Gabby, the pre-Gabby, and now the post-Gabby.
Yeah.
But and I think this is an important point to probably talk about, right? Is either way you dealt with it, where you had the anger and you dealt with the waitress and the manager directly, or in the other instance where you treated her with the kindness and acceptance and love that you wanted back from her, right?
Yeah.
Can you speak to that a little bit for our listeners and viewers, in the sense that, is there a right or wrong way, or maybe I should say a correct or incorrect way to address when you feel you are being bullied or discriminated against?
Bullied could be a little more difficult, but when you are discriminated against, like in that case, right now, I would advise that you do not deal with it when you're angry.
Mhm.
Number one,
Mhm.
take a deep breath and then try to talk to that person. Give them a compliment, do everything. If they take
Mhm.
it, then things will be perfect because they're going to start treating you equally, right? But
Mhm.
if still they continue to bully you, that's a different story.
Mm.
Then
Yeah.
you definitely need to take it up a notch. You have to call their manager and tell them, because the problem that I'm finding with all, even the restaurant owners, the smaller companies, is they don't train them.
Mm.
I think they should, like I was talking to someone, they need to train them. They need to bring in like one or few people, like someone to, no, seriously, like once every, even if it's
Mhm.
once every quarter, to bring in someone for half a day to train them leadership. Because a leader, a true leader, does not discriminate. A true leader
Yeah.
does not bully anybody. So
Absolutely.
I think that's what they're missing. So that's what I would advise them.
That's
Okay.
great. Ironic enough, if you don't mind me jumping in, Lee, as well,
Yeah,
too.
absolutely. Please do.
I can actually speak to that from the other side. I have, gosh, I think, over a decade's worth of service and hospitality experience, being a server, a bartender, working in that field. And I can speak from experience the fact that, a lot of times the focus when you're going to work for a restaurant is not on your ability to engage with guests, with proper etiquette or politely, or to bring, a positive energy and attitude forward. A lot of times it's just, oh, well, make sure you know what's on the menu. Make sure you tell them about our discounts and our specials, sell, and then go on to the next one. It's we treat it like it's just like almost like a little conveyor system where it's do the things you got to do, go to the next, go to the next, go to the next, because that, as often is the case, unfortunately, profit is put first. And
Interesting.
so
I
I think
it's treated as a number as
Yes.
opposed to. So I venture to say this, kind of piggybacking on this discussion here. I'd venture to say that it's treated as a number, or customers are treated as a number, but the restaurants that really thrive in all situations are the ones that focus on the experience.
Exactly.
Yeah. True.
Because the experience is the interaction with the server who is directly involved with the customer, right?
Yeah.
That's at that moment, they are the face of
Yes.
whatever restaurant, right? So let's say you had a bad experience and it's a national chain, you're never going to go to that chain again because of that one experience at that one place.
So,
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
That there's not more focus placed on experience.
Yeah.
Gabby, you must be made for television and any kind of broadcast, because you gave us the perfect segue when you talked about training. I want to jump into a part of your book now that you mentioned about the schools.
Yeah.
So it, like, when you mentioned training, that's what it made me think about. How you, and I want to mention this too, like the stories, I kept going over them, that you had about it was like anywhere from first grade, second grade, and I think there were maybe like a grade 8, something like that.
Yeah.
But the segue that we're getting to this is the training that you talk about schools should have, right? The leaders or leadership, right? Leadership teams, they seem to be, I think that's actually the title of the chapter, where it's like unaware or something, but they seem to be unaware of the dynamic, right?
Yeah. Lack of awareness in some
Schools.
schools.
That's it. Yeah, lack of
Page
awareness.
22, yeah.
So it's amazing how, again, I guess very similar, not that schools are restaurants, and I don't want anyone to think that. But school and education is much more than just learning the material, right?
Absolutely.
It is an experience, and it's an experience that helps shape and form your identity, because we're in school from a very young age all the way till 18, 19, or if you go to beyond high school, right?
Yeah.
So Gabby, can you, if you can, speak to a few of those stories, or just in general, about what's one common thread that you found from some of the students that you got the stories from for that part of the
Oh
of the
my
book?
God. I interviewed a ton of kids because I love children. I don't know how I ended up with one, but I love children so much. And I'm very passionate about kids. And I interviewed a lot of kids, and they feel they get discriminated against, like by the teachers at some point, sometimes, especially
Yes.
like if they're Black or they're like non-Caucasian, if the teacher a
Mhm.
lot. Having said that, one of my closest friends is a high school teacher. She would kick anybody's butt for her students. Like there are teachers like that who treat their students more exactly like their kids, right?
Mhm.
But there is that, like, for example, I don't know what to say. Like there is the kids, they
Mhm.
don't get told to stop bullying a certain kid. Like a child would
Mm.
go complain to the
Mhm.
principal, to their teacher, to the principal. Like these kids have been making fun of my clothes, have been making fun of my religion, have been making fun of my parents. Nobody does anything.
Mm.
Yeah.
They don't, there is no discipline, there is no call your parents and this is it. There is no leadership treatment, because I feel like a lot of these teachers that I have personally experienced with my son's schools,
Mhm.
they need to be trained first, leadership, personal growth, before they try to teach other children.
Yes.
That's what I found. And then some of the kids, they bring it from home.
Yes.
You hit the nail on the head.
Mhm.
Gabby, you're just tossing them up and I'm swinging, because that's where I was going next.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you sure you didn't look at my pre-show notes or something? Because
No, I think I had a sneak peek. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but you make a great point.
Mhm.
And like I wanted to share this example too, that it does come from home.
Oh,
Yes.
This is not something that kids are automatically born with. They get it from somewhere. Okay.
Mhm.
they do.
So I guess maybe 6-7 years ago, my daughter was at one of her friends' birthday parties, a few blocks from where we live now here in DC. And um, there were, so at the friend's house, it's a one-way street like ours, but a lot of the neighbors know each other, kids running around the front yard, right? So there were maybe 6 or 7 of the friends that this friend invited, including my daughter. So again, it's nice out, kids go outside and play. Right? That's what you do.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
again, some of the neighbors who weren't invited also started playing with the kids, and it's mixed races, right? No one particular race or anything. But then um as the party's winding up, one of the neighbor children, who happened to be white, was saying this, and he said it to me. And I had to stop and realize, wait a minute, this kid is about 7 or 8. No
Oh.
way is he making this up. So
Yeah.
he said, and I quote, "Get off of my lawn." And I said, well, wait a minute. And I'm an adult. So my first reaction was wanted to, smack the kid, but that's not right. And you can't handle things with violence. So I'm like, okay, what's really going on here, right?
Mhm.
Because I just saw the neighbors, the adults, everybody seemed to be fine. No way does this kid get that on his own. Okay.
No, absolutely.
So it came from somewhere. And at that point, I'm like, okay, well, time to go get my daughter and we got to go. Because again, our friends, obviously, right there, and they were a Black family who lived there, but it just caught me. I was like, wow, I wonder if they know, or if something's been said to their daughters of something similar, right? Now,
Yeah.
clearly, I don't live on that street.
Mhm.
But just hearing that statement from an 8-year-old white boy made me cringe, like, wow. Now we're talking, like I said, 6-7 years ago. I'm not saying this was 20 years ago. It happened to me, although I can tell you many of those stories. This is recent. And I was like, So also, I think as a parent, you try to shield your children from it while you explain it to them, because at some point they probably will experience it. So you have to discuss it, but those thoughts and actions come from somewhere. So, and the teachers, like in your book, you describe a lot of the stories that from the kids you interviewed. The teachers don't really help it. They don't help educate, right? It could be a teaching moment for the kids who are bullying. It could be also a peaceful moment, like, okay, we understand this is happening. What is an equitable way to help you so that you can get the same education that everybody else is getting, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it does. Oh, sorry. And I can feel my blood pressure right now thinking about what that kid said.
You know, and it's so funny because and like you were saying, like you have this example from just a few years ago with your own child, you know, Lee. And it's so interesting because there's actually been a couple cases in the news recently, just from, you know, like within the last like month or so. There was a case on the news, and I want to say the school was in like Minnesota or somewhere in that area. And forgive me, I've been trying to pull it up actually on my phone without being disrespectful to try to, you know, get the specifics of it.
Sure.
But there was a young Native American indigenous child in a classroom, and two other students, you know, white students, came up and they cut his hair off because he had his hair long and traditional and braided. And they came and cut his hair off in the middle of the classroom, and the teacher didn't do anything to stop it. And when they asked her, why didn't she stop it? She said, well, he didn't ask me for help.
Oh my goodness.
And it's moments like that where I'm feeling like, where are those additional teaching methods and additional consideration and, you know, our own individual critical thinking processes as adults put in place to be able to say, like, you know what? The child isn't asking for help, but they might be scared. They might feel intimidated. They might feel embarrassed about trying to speak up in front of the other students or their peers about something that can be a very sensitive issue.
Absolutely.
You know, and just the complete lack of accountability that she was willing to just be like, well, he didn't say anything to me, so
it's almost like she would have just said, oh, it's just hair.
Yeah.
Or I don't care.
Or I don't care. Which is very similar to the teachers that were in the stories in your book. You know, the teachers were part of the problem, if not the problem. Sometimes it wasn't the students. Excuse me. So, oh my gosh.
It is true. And then for those of you listeners, we're not talking about all teachers. There are so many teachers to die for. They are like full of integrity, they care, they do that. And some of you, we can understand it can lack of budget. Some of them, they go through a tough time. There is lack of enough teachers. There is lack of budget. They go, maybe sometimes you could give them the excuse that because they're overworked, they don't give attention to that child who is complaining to them. But also there has to be a way of taking this very, very seriously when a child or a kid is being bullied because of one reason or another. And parents, don't even get me started.
As we already talked about my experience, it comes. I will say this as a parent, as an engaged parent with the school community, wherever my daughter's in school, I'm engaged with that. It's not the teacher's sole responsibility. To educate, right? It takes everybody. So I'm in my wife, we are in communication with the teachers, with whoever's involved with her. That way we're all on the same page, because kids will also tell you what they want you to know.
That is
they do.
Just understand that. But parents, so parents model what you want your children to be. And maybe that's going to take some self-reflection, you know. Gabby, is there before we go, or before I get to Gabby, Dakota, do you have any questions that you would like to ask Gabby before I give her last word?
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
One of my questions I actually was really curious about, Gabby, if you don't mind me asking, was what was your process in kind of gathering the people to do the kind of interviews and discussions with to be able to get those stories and put them into your book? Were those just a collection of encounters and acquaintances you had have over the years, and you just went to them to ask if you could share those stories, or did you like reach out specifically for the purpose of writing the book?
Yeah, because for most of my life, I have seen it happen over and over
Hmm.
and over again. And in the job market and everywhere, I always used to fight or argue or go defend somebody. And
Hmm.
then it was always in my mind, but I always used to think, okay, when I retire, I'm gonna do this. When I retire, I'm gonna do this. And then I said to myself, why not? Because things have been really nasty the last several years.
Yes.
And yeah, so even during COVID, a mom, no, not during COVID. I think it's just when I was just beginning to start the thing, my son came running with a live video. He showed me there was a girl who had mental illness. She was so tiny, petite. Okay, she
Hmm.
must be in her 20s, but very petite. Her mom also, I saw her in the video, very petite. I think she had a tantrum, so her mom
Hmm.
called the police,
Outside.
and then to calm her down or take her to mental hospital or something like that.
Hmm.
I
Mhm.
don't know what she must have given them a tantrum. They threw her off the balcony from the seventh floor. She died right there and then. And then this kid who used to happen in his late 20s, he witnessed it and he took it on video. And then my son came like with his breathing. He goes, "Look, mom, what just happened?" And then the
Yeah.
mother came down. She said, "The police just killed my daughter. They just threw her off the balcony." This is like,
Mm.
and then I said, okay, this even encouraged me more now to really go
Yeah.
ahead. Then I was gonna stop after the COVID because I was having all these big plans with my friends about, but then my friend, my closest friend, she goes to me, this is the time, especially after the Floyd thing and all that stuff that happened. She goes
Yes.
to me, actually,
Mhm.
Gabby, with all this is the time to continue doing it, to finish it up right
Hmm.
now. And then I looked at her and I said, yes, you're right. So that is how I did it because I have witnessed it. And then I decided instead of just sharing my own experiences, I also would love to interview people.
Yeah.
And then my friends who experienced it, they have shared my story from the PhD doctor, from the police
Mm.
officer, from
Hmm.
Mhm.
the executive, from the pharmacist, from the people black on black. You got to read the story. Discrimination comes in so many different forms, right?
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
and then I shared in between. I always share my own experiences, and that is what I did. And then I focused on kids. I couldn't put all the kids interviews in one book because I'm not a fan of like a 300 400 page book.
Hmm.
This is like very old school.
Hmm.
So I didn't want it to be in one book, but I chose a few that separate. Like I had a Jewish kid, I had
Mhm.
a Chinese kid, I had a Muslim girl, I had a person who was bullied because a kid who was bullied because he couldn't afford the $500 or $300 shoes. He was
Hmm.
bullied in school, and about some teachers. And I chose different stories and incorporated it in my book. And of course, because
Hmm.
of age and privacy, I could not share their names. So
Yeah.
Oh,
that is what I
absolutely.
did. Yeah.
Yeah. Of
Yeah.
course.
Understood. And I want to say that that was one thing that really stuck out to me too. And that's the point. We're not talking about, I just want to make this distinction for our listeners and viewers. We're not talking about discrimination against one type of person
Hmm.
or one group of people. Discrimination happens to everybody
Yes.
in many different groups.
Ways. Yeah.
Hmm.
And you definitely did a excellent job of illustrating that with picking out the different stories and interviews. It went across the board.
Yeah.
It wasn't one particular, it wasn't all racism, or it was everything. And you can just clearly see, um I love how you've changed and say that, you know what, it's now from love and acceptance, right?
Yeah.
that's how you fight that. Some of us are still working on love and acceptance.
Yes. It's a process.
Yes.
I mean, like, it's not always easy, right? It's not, forgiveness was never my my forte. It took a lot of spiritual learning, spiritual studying, and things like that. I am a lot better now. But forgiveness, I'm not a fighter. I don't like confrontation, but I never forgave. Like, I don't forgive easily if somebody hurts me. And the way I deal with it is I shut that person completely. I don't talk to them. I don't do that. I ignore them, which is the worst thing. I had like 2 ladies resign from their job because I went in the next morning, ignored them. Good morning, Gabby, as if they didn't do anything bad. Good morning, Gabby. I just walked by. Gabby, good morning. I just walked by. After 3 days, each of them resigned. That is the old Gabby in my younger days. That's how I used to be, right? But now you just take the person for coffee. Let's go have coffee. That's me now. I am like, as a coach, as a mentor, let's go have coffee, and then over coffee downstairs somewhere, Starbucks or whatever. Talk to them. This is not how you talk to people. This is not what you should do. There is a different atmosphere when you're outside of work, when you talk with people, than you're talking to them in the office. So that is how I deal with issues like that. And forgiveness still is like, I'm working on it. I'm much better now. I'm working on it.
Well, I think those are things that we can always work on. Gabby, I appreciate it. Please tell us where, and tell our listeners how they can find you, how they can find your books, not just the book on discrimination, but your first book as well. Where can people find you?
My website is, the book is like the book on discrimination.com, but it's available on Amazon. I can actually share the link later.
Okay.
Once this is done, I can share the link.
Sure. And I'll post it in the comments under the video. Absolutely.
And if anybody wants my first story, The Grace Peace Balance, they can DM me. They can buy it from me directly. That one. And I'm in 2 other books that I'm a co-author with, which is, one of them is called The Empowering Women to Succeed, Bounce. I'm a co-author. I have a chapter there, which is also another international bestseller. In September, I was a co-author in a book called Stay Alive, Volume 3, which is about suicide prevention, another subject that is close to my heart as well. So these 2 books are fully mine, and I am co-author in 2 different books. And I always like to write about something that touched the heart and the mind. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, Gabby. We could go on for another couple hours. I could dive into the book a little further, but we have appreciated you gracing us with your presence. We've appreciated your time on Move the Needle. Dakota, thank you for, again, stepping up. And
my pleasure.
And JR, my brother, speedy, full recovery. Yes. Hopefully we have represented you well with this episode with the declutter queen, Gabby Abdelgadir. But yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. And for all our listeners, you can find Move the Needle and the other podcasts that are under the Live All Good family on Spotify, on Google, on Apple. We have appreciated your time tonight. If you want to get in touch with Gabby or myself or even Dakota for any appearances, because obviously he's good, you can reach out to us on Facebook. Reach out to me. I will post a replay of this video and keep it pinned on my page. All right, you guys, thank you so much. Everybody have a good night. And until next month,
thank you.
This is Move the Needle.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dakota, Lee. Thank you.
The pleasure's all ours, Gabby. Thank you.